Greetings, Clausewitz here. So this will be the first video in my new series about the army of the Macedonian Kingdom. I know I make quite often video series, but this is just because the topics I choose are quite complicated and I really want to cover every important aspect, or what I consider important. And also my arguments are kinda getting long, so this is why I need to make video series, because I also don't want to make really long videos. So what was the Macedonian Kingdom, by the way? It was a state in the north of Greece, and later on, under Alexander the Great, it conquered like the Persian Empire and subdued the rest of the Greek city-states, and therefore ruled a big empire, but just for the lifetime of Alexander the Great. And I don't want to dive here into the kingdom itself or about the culture, because there are like some discussions since the beginning of time. Were they Greek or were they considered Greek back then? Can we consider them Greeks and everything? And were they the ancestors of the Slavs? There's many of this discussion and many nationalism underway here. But I don't want to talk about this in this video. This is about the army. Maybe I will someday make a video about this and put my opinion into the pit. So, this army of Macedonia was quite interesting actually. It was really one of the first professional armies, or the biggest part of them were professionals actually, so soldiers, not just like hoplites or like other things. Were basically conscripts, good and professional conscripts, but still not soldiers. They had to buy their own equipment and stuff. And it's really like the transition between this whole city-state, this whole like tribe system in Europe, and later on the professional army of Rome, and like between of them. And I will start in this first video with the phalanx. This is actually what you will get every time when the subject comes about Macedonia, about Alexander the Great. Every time they will talk about the phalanx. This is an interesting subject, but I will just say this beforehand. It wasn't the phalanx wasn't the factor which made the Macedonian army great, Alexander great. It wasn't like the most important part about it performed, I would say, the most important role, the most important task. But this wasn't the destructive or the killing part, and actually could perform it with other troops as well. These guys were actually quite effective in it. So I don't want to make them bad, to say, oh, they couldn't do anything. They were important, they were effective, it was a good functional system, but just to take the myth out of it. So, you may already know Hoplite Phalanxes. If not, just watch my video series about hoplites. And this was a next stage of this, the whole Hoplite Phalanx development. The first, most important difference actually between this and normal hoplites were the weaponry. You see here that they had a very long spear, so basically a pike. It is a pike, this is what is from definition of pike, a really long spear. And was called the zarissa. And to use this long pike, they needed both hands, and therefore their shield gets smaller, so they could be strapped on the arm, and their left hand would be free. In contrary to the hoplites, they had a normal short spear for combat, for melee, and quite big shield, the hoplon, which was really, they depended on it. This is actually what you see in the whole antiquity in Europe, that the shield was the main defensive, was the most important part of your equipment, and determined what you will do on the battlefield. But here the phalangites actually, no, the shield was just like an additional part of their defensive equipment, and the biggest amount, the main amount of their defense came from the zarissa, from the pike. They also had a sidearm like the hoplites, basically the same sidearm, Kordas swords mainly, but could also use every other sidearm they want to. What is a really interesting difference is that the phalangites were really soldiers. They were paid, equipped, and trained by the state, by the kingdom. They were actually considered as companions on foot, so companions of the king. So it was a kind of high rank in society of Macedonia. The hoplites, on the other hand, were, like I described it, a professional militia. They were citizens which were obliged to do this war duty when there is war. They have to buy their own stuff. They had to train. I think they had to train. Really, I think the state trained them kind of, or give them orders how to train. But this is what I mean with professional militia. They were citizens which had to fight if needed to, but they weren't anything else. Like the Phalangites would perform other duties in peacetime. And so, just to give you now the main difference here. When it comes to fighting to the battlefield, they also had some differences, of course, actually some big differences. The Hoplite really had a very specific type of formation, or specific types of formation, which were really necessary for them and for their fighting, and also applied, really, this is the reason why they had also this shield, this type of shield. And the Phalangites, on the other hand, had their long pikes, which was now the necessary part. They were organized in in groups of 200 men, and this 200 men would form a phalanx, a battle line in the army or for a battle. And their task was to form the center and to bind the enemy forces, so that there would be a safe space where like the own troops, like cavalry and skirmishers, could retreat to, and give the other troops room and space to maneuver, to apply different tactics. And how they did this, actually this was something the Hoplites kind of also did, but Hoplite warfare wasn't so like advanced or so complicated at this point, or in the end sometimes. But what the Macedonian Phalanx did was, like I said, they had these 200 man groups, and the first 5 ranks of them would point the spears towards the enemy, and since from the 6 ranks to the last one, it would get upwards with the spear, to have them ready to replace somebody if somebody gets hurt, injured, not hurt, injured, if somebody died, something like that. And now you had really like 5 rows of spearheads in front of them. You had this very long weapon, but basically this is the reason why they were safe. Other enemies in melee range couldn't hit them. If they want to use like missile weapons, slings, javelins, whatever, the Phalangite for himself was well protected, linothorax, bronze helm, basically the same stuff as Hoplites, and had own skirmishers which could act between the ranks or from behind it. But another important part why they could like bind the enemy and really occupy them was you had really this 200 men, you had this hundreds of men which would all kind of push against you. They would really go towards you with their pikes, and they were a tight formation. So basically most of the force they could apply it would kind of transfer to the spearheads, and you had now a really small area, many small areas. Basically you couldn't just walk through it. Some spears would hit you, even if it can't injure you. You had an armor or a shield. There was like the force of hundreds of miles behind it would like push against you. How will you overwhelm it? Because of this high pressure. Because pressure is just force through the area. High force of this hundreds of guys and some dozens of spearheads, of little points. This is extremely high pressure you have to overcome. And this is just the secret, when you want to, of the Phalangites. And I really like this. It's really it's effective, it performs their purpose well. It isn't something complicated, it's really easy. You can put recruits in it, they could perform it. And this is what I really call military effective. It can be better, but this is not the subject for this video. But like I mentioned, this is not what made the Macedonian army great or effective, basically, or give them their success, or gave them their success. They played an important role. They were the basis for every other tactics they could apply. This has to function, this has to work, and which kind of when needed times did. And yeah, but I want to say something that there are 2 questions around about this Phalangites. The first one is, if the sarissas, the pikes in the back, which were in this angle all the time, if we have some sources mentioning of this time that it would be a protection against missiles, arrows, javelins, stuff. And there is a discussion about this. Like one side says it is a good protection, other side no, it isn't a good protection, or not at all. And yeah, I want to answer this question. I want to talk about this in the next video, and also about, is the Legion better than this? There was actually a battle where these 2 troops collided and the Legion won, and Was it better because the Legion is better because of the Gladius and everything? There is also a discussion on the way. It's really simple actually, it's nothing special at all. I can't understand why there's so much fuss about it. But I will talk in my next video also about the Phalanx in the context of this missile protection and in the context of versus the Legion. But this is for this part. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and hopefully see you soon.